I don't think so.
Take a seat. We would be honored if you would join us.
Welcome back to another episode of Star Wars After Party. I'm glad you're here. Go ahead and crack one, do whatever it is you're going to do. For the next hour, it's all about Star Wars. Whatever it is, whatever we're going through, whatever we're getting into for the next hour, it is Star Wars. It's Return of the Jedi. It's showing your friends and family Star Wars. It's comics. It's everything, I guess. It's all of it. We're just going to talk about it all. Joining us for the first time, welcome. I'm Tyler Bodkins. I've been in this fight since I was 8 years old. And with me, the man who made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs, it's Cameron Porter.
What up?
Sometimes I just got to remind people how extraordinary you are of a navigator out here navigating through Star Wars and the fandom and the culture and the entertainment. You're on a journey right now.
Yeah, that's...
And you're really guiding a Padawan, really is kind of one of the first things we're going to talk about.
That's what they call me.
Is what? A navigator?
Yeah.
Oh, they call you the navigator. So it's like Obi-Wan is the negotiator and you're the navigator?
Yeah, something like that.
I like that, actually.
I can
like
get
that.
with it.
I also like that shirt. Tell me about the shirt real fast.
Ooh, yeah. This is
you should be watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
But if you're listening, thank
the
you.
Pod Racing Champion shirt. I fell victim to some really well-targeted Instagram advertising a couple weeks ago. This one. And let's see, a Miller Lite shirt, a Miller Lite Racing shirt, and a Tatooine shirt that I talked about last week.
I like it, man. I mean,
this is one of my favorites, so.
It's got that NASCAR vibe for sure, which is kind of interesting because, I mean, I know it literally says pod racing, but even without looking at the word racing, if I look at it, I'm like, it's NASCAR vibes.
Yeah.
What is that?
I don't know. I love it, though.
How do they do that? Like, how do they make it NASCAR? Like, I don't understand how NASCAR has such a stereotypical T-shirt look. I don't know how to say it, but
I don't know, but I want more. I want more Star Wars shirts in this style because it's not a blatant like I'm just walking around with the Star Wars logo or
right.
Anakin Skywalker's face on my shirt. It's like it's a little more subtle. I think it's cool.
Also like a confluence.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Cameron Porter, I don't know if you were born in Darlington, but you live pretty close. I mean, like, he's too tough to tame. You can look at his mustache and just tell the man has had a Miller Lite in his life, and he's certainly watched a NASCAR race or two. So I like that it's like all those things put together for you. So we were discussing, showing friends and loved ones Star Wars for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
And you just finished. When I say just, Cameron, it's 2:53. What time did you say that you hit, stop on Return of the Jedi?
I hit stop on Return of the Jedi at 2:23.
So 30 minutes ago, Cameron just finished watching the original trilogy with his girlfriend, Lacey. Tell us about maybe the whole experience, but then we're going to tighten up and talk about Return of the Jedi for a little while. Because why not just talk about Return of the Jedi on a random afternoon? Let's do it.
Sunday. Well, I'll start by saying that Sunday has become our favorite day of the week. We get to work together. We work remotely 2 days a week together. She's off on Fridays. And Sundays are typically like relax, drink coffee, kind of lay around the house, open the windows as Tyler just did in the room we're podcasting in. So I like the idea of like lounging in the morning during the daylight on Sundays.
Yeah.
So
we do a similar thing at our house. We always watch HGTV on Sunday morning.
Oh, there you go. So we watched A New Hope a couple weeks ago and then Empire Strikes Back shortly after, and we just haven't had a time. She's been wanting to watch Return of the Jedi. She's been saying let's watch it. But so it's usually
she's ready for it. Like she's like, I need it. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, but it's always been like in the evenings, 7:30, 8 o'clock. We usually fall asleep like pretty quickly once we start watching something. So I was like, nah, let's wait. Let's do our Sunday morning routine and watch it. So we watched the first half of it this morning, and then we did a couple of things, and then we finished the rest of it about 30 minutes ago. But
that's awesome.
It's been a good experience, and you've probably experienced this yourself, but like getting somebody into Star Wars is a really kind of nerve-wracking feeling.
Explain it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Well, it's like there have been times in my life where I've like heard a song that has really struck a chord with me. No pun intended. And you send it to like 10 friends. You're like, dude, you got to listen to the song. You got to listen to the song. And then sometimes people do match your energy, but there are other times people are like, yeah, that's a cool song. And you're like, yeah, but like, did you hear how the bass sounded? Or like, what about the drums or like the lyrics and what it meant? It's like, sometimes you want to keep things to yourself because sharing it with somebody else, like, diminishes it a little bit because you're risking like, oh crap, like this person might not like it as much, or like, I might like it less because now I'm having to like explain it to somebody.
Yeah, it's I think it's as the kids would say, like, they may not match your freak.
maybe so.
Like what I mean is like they just might not be as into it as you. And then like, what does that mean? Does that mean that there's something weird about me? There's something weird about them?
Well, then you just always have that
weird about the thing I'm showing them.
You run the risk of like attaching somebody else's lesser interest to something that like meant a lot to you in that moment. So like getting somebody into Star Wars is really daunting in the fact that as a seasoned Star Wars fan, you watch it and you see how everything connects. And you're like, oh man, like Luke just cut Vader's hand off and he just realized like his hand was robotic as well. And now he's looking at his own. He's like, we both had the same robotic hand. And like, you're connecting it to like the prequels and everything that happened in between and the sequels and everything else. But somebody that doesn't know all that is just watching it for what is on the screen.
Right.
So you're trying to, I have to like fight the urge to like stop the movie and explain how everything is connected in order to try and like sell it to her or sell it to somebody else, because you want to like grab somebody's attention and like hold them in. Yep. Because when you're watching the original trilogy, you're like, yeah, these movies are great, but it gets so much better if you can make it through these, and then you can make it through the prequels, and you can make it through the sequels. You'll see, you can take a step back and like look at it all as like one big connected thing.
When you say it gets better, I know what you mean, and I'm going to clarify for other people who might be like, what do you mean it gets better? Better than Empire Strikes Back? He means it's 2024. And like with the way that we're talking about Cameron's girlfriend, she can watch a movie that's a little probably slower than the average movie today, but especially when you're dealing with like kids, there's sometimes a concern of like, is my 10-year-old nephew going to be able to sit through A New Hope? Right. You know, and so that's what
are they going to be able to understand like the real character development that is happening right now, and are they understanding the dynamics that are happening between these relationships, and can they feel the struggle between good and evil?
So I can relate to everything you're saying. This need to be like, don't you see how great it is? I bet that you probably found, and I want to hear more about, you know, how she felt about the original trilogy, but like I bet you probably found that something I've noticed when I share things with other people is like you do have to kind of like be a Jedi and let go of the attachment of and let go of the need to over explain certain things, because obviously that's not how we took it in for the first time, you know? And so you do have to kind of be like, you know what? They may not resonate with this thing that resonates so much with me, but you said some great stuff a second ago where you were talking about like, it's this eternal struggle of good versus evil. Yeah. And that's the thing that I think always resonates, and it's why for the most part you don't see many people take Star Wars in unless they're just being closed-minded or whatever, but you don't find most people who are open to it take especially the original trilogy in and not be affected by it in some way. So I love that, you know, these are all things you're considering and thinking. Talk to me more specifically, and we could talk about Return of the Jedi just for the sake of us just discussing Return of the Jedi, but talk to me about some of her thoughts. I'm interested. Maybe I think we're at this point. There's been these breadcrumbs over the last couple months of our podcast of you getting her into Star Wars, and I don't know. I'm just curious. Maybe other people are as well. So, like, what did she think about Return of the Jedi? And is there a favorite between the three? I'd love to know these things.
Ooh. So, well, we didn't really have a whole lot of time to like discuss it afterwards, but
30 minutes.
I would say that like she was so engaged. Like I just kept waiting until we got to the very end of the movie where like you got Vader, you've got the Emperor like force lightninging Luke, and like you're watching Vader struggle, and then him like Vader's redemption is what I was like really really waiting for the whole time. There were a couple of like moments where she was like, oh wow, like when Luke realized that Leia was his sister,
right?
Or Yoda like confirming to him, yes, he is your father, and the tension in that scene of like, oh, what's it like? Yoda's gonna like he rolled like we were joking about how Yoda like rolled over, and then Luke said something else, and then Yoda like rolled back over and was like, yeah, I'll tell you something else.
Yep.
So, I could see like she was holding in all the tension, all the tense moments that really are important for you to understand like how serious things are. Let's see, the whole Jabba's palace sequence, like Sarlacc pit scene. Because there's a new like desert skiff Lego set that came out. I'm waiting for it to like come down a little bit on price because it's a little overpriced right now. But because I've got it on our like we have like a shared wish list.
Black Friday.
Yeah. So I was like, yeah, like this is the ship. And then she was looking at it when we were like. When we were driving earlier, she was like, "Oh yeah, there's Boba Fett, and there's the character, and like there's Han Solo and Lando."
You hear that, fans out there, Star Wars fans, you guys need to show your loved ones Star Wars, and you just like put a little Star Wars in the wish list, and maybe they'll be a little invested in getting it for you.
I've always kept my hobbies. I've always played that very close to the vest. Legos, Star Wars comic books, like. You and I talk about it, but I've never really been in a situation where I had somebody that was like willing and like eager to like find interest in my interests.
Yeah.
So there wasn't at any point that I felt like I was dragging her through the Star Wars movies or she was disengaged. Like she was on board 100%. And I will say that it made me be more engaged with the original trilogy. Like I probably watched those 3 movies more engaged this time through than I have in years.
That's awesome.
Because we know how the story goes.
Yeah.
I usually put on Star Wars if I'm building Legos or I'm like working on something around the house. So I kind of like passively watch it.
I get that. But
I watched it way more intently because I was trying to like pick up on things as well. And also be prepared for her questions. But like when we broke halfway through it, we were driving earlier. She's like, all right, ask me some questions. So I was like, all right. Where was Han Solo being kept? And like what information, like what did Luke say he couldn't do to Obi-Wan Kenobi? So it was awesome. She was super into it. And it was awesome seeing Hayden Christensen at the very end as the Force Ghost because I was like, that's Anakin. Like, you haven't even seen him.
Oh, man. That's right. She hasn't even seen the prequels yet.
Yeah, when we finished Return of the Jedi, I was like, we just watched these 3 movies, like, talking about Luke Skywalker's story. And it's so beautiful how they put Hayden Christensen in after the fact because it leaves you a little breadcrumb to start with a prequel trilogy because it's like, there's Anakin. We're about to watch 3 movies that we see him develop from like a 7-year-old into a teenager, into an adult, into his descent into the dark side. So
you mentioned the fact, and this I think is a cool like call to show your loved ones Star Wars. You mentioned the fact that like it also provided you with like the most engaging experience that you've had watching Star Wars in a long time. So like there is, this trepidation that you discuss where you're like, what if they don't like it as much? What if they don't have the same connection that I do? And that is a peril. Like, that might happen if you show someone you care about, Star Wars. It could happen.
Yeah.
But if you push through, you might find that actually you have even a better time. It actually feels a lot like the hero's journey. You've got that refusal of the call, like, no, I'm not going to show this person Star Wars. But then when you actually do it, you discover this whole new world.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty cool that was your experience. And I think it serves as encouragement to all of us. Like, if there's somebody you care about, just show them Star Wars. It's okay. I know that it's like, I legitimately am like, what if I show my nephew Star Wars and he hates it? Like, what is that going to mean? And ultimately, it doesn't really mean much. It just means that they just weren't into it for whatever reason. And maybe one day later down the line, they will be. Who knows? Yeah. That happens too. So I love that, man. Let's talk about your experience of Return of the Jedi. Is this your first time watching Return of the Jedi in a while? Like, when was the last time you watched Return of the Jedi? Was it before Mandoverse? Was it... how long has it been?
It was probably pre-Mandoverse.
Okay, so it's been a few years.
Yeah.
And therefore, this is the first time you've watched Return of the Jedi since Mando, Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
That changes the experience.
Absolutely, yeah.
Talk to me about that.
It was funny. Let's see. I will say, like, seeing Boba Fett, like, fall into the Sarlacc pit and seeing how insignificant of a death that was in the moment. It's like, his jetpack like malfunctions. He slams into the side of the sail barge.
Hey, it was like that when Cobb Vanth got it, by the way.
Exactly. Yeah. So it just, she even made a joke. She was like, wait, that's Boba. Like, I thought we liked him. I thought he was a cool character. He just like died like that. I was like, yeah, but like, because she asked me why I liked him so much. I was like, he's just such a good bounty hunter. He's got all these like gadgets. He's just a cool, like very reserved character. And then you get to see him develop a lot more in the TV show, obviously. But let's see, overall experience. I forgot how funny this movie was.
Yeah.
I forgot how tense things were between Luke and Vader, and let's see. This movie was just a lot more adventurous than I remembered. And honestly, like, if you think about it, there's really only like a handful of scenes in the whole movie. Like,
that's an interesting point.
Like, we get these settings like Jabba's sail barge and palace.
Yep.
Endor.
Yep.
Death Star battle.
Yep.
Emperor's throne room.
Yep.
What am I missing?
There's a couple of little things like the briefing with Mon Mothma or Luke on Dagobah, but you're right in that. You're right in that the bulk of the film really does take place in like almost like 3 locations, which is Jabba's palace on Tatooine, the planet Endor, and then the Death Star and the surrounding.
It has so few sequences.
Yeah,
and I think it keeps you so engaged because it feels like it plays out in real time.
Let's talk about that. So it does very much feel like it plays out in real time. And one of my favorite things about Return of the Jedi is the fact that you have these like 3 battles going on at once in the end. You've got this battle of the rebellion versus the Empire on the ground with our heroes like Han Solo, Chewbacca, Leia, R2-3PO, Wicket, the Ewoks. Then you've got this pretty sick, air battle. We got Lando, we got Nien Nunb, we got all of these different rebellion ships and things really seem hopeless. And then you've got the saber duel between Vader and Luke with Emperor Palpatine, the literally evil embodied itself, just like stoking that.
Yeah.
It's really one of the best ideas of how to culminate a trilogy. And, you mentioned the fact that there's not that many set pieces or scenes. And I think that's what allows that, by the way, because if you have 100 different things going on, it's going to be hard to cut back and forth between all of them and not feel like you're being ripped around in a million different places. I think of, I don't know, not to throw it under the bus, but kind of like a little Rise of Skywalker,
That's
where
exactly
it
what I
really
was gonna
feels
say.
a little bit too much.
It's
but
like,
it's been a while since I watched it. Maybe not. Maybe
Well, it's
not.
just it's more all over the place,
right?
And that plays into what we're talking about like movies now, like, and the culture that we live in, and the way that our brains are like conditioned to consume things so quickly, and our attention spans are like wrecked completely. So you have to have a movie like Rise of Skywalker where you're jumping around like crazy, and you're over here on this planet, and then you're doing this, and then there's this character over here. It's like you have to have something that meets your brain where it is, where it's jumping around. So you really just have to slow down your mind to sit and watch the original trilogy, and when you do, you kind of like rest in it. You like kind of get real comfortable in the movie. You're like, okay, this is where I am. We're on Endor, and then it builds that tension throughout the movie. And then at the end of it, you do have those 3 battles going on at the same time, and there's natural tension in that because it's flipping from one thing to the next. And I was watching Return of the Jedi today, like waiting for the big moments between Vader and Luke, like waiting for him to happen, and then boom, it switches back to Endor, and I was like, crap, I forgot.
Good point.
So you're like, Endor's great and all, but like, can we get back to Luke and Vader, and like, what's pending there?
It's like you're building. You're just building the drums, and there's like all these suspension cords happening, and you're just building, and you think it's about to go big, and then it just goes back down again, and you're just like, oh my, give me the chorus, man. Yeah. Man, it's such a interesting. That's why I think, I feel like George Lucas, and I believe that Return of the Jedi still was Marsha Lucas, George's first wife. Like the editing, is insane. Like, I mean, it's so good the way that they manage that tension and release throughout the film. But like, that closing third, that final arc, I mean, it's insane. There's something that, speaking of, if you don't mind us going on a little bit of a tangent, this is just some random Return of the Jedi knowledge that I somehow possess. I heard it said a while ago, maybe it was like an interview that Marsha Lucas had given, or it could have been Mark Hamill, it could have been someone, I can't recall, but they were sort of talking about the fact that, Richard Marquand, the director of Return of the Jedi, that he had really given Mark Hamill a lot of direction to really lean into a darker portrayal of Luke Skywalker. Yeah. And that early cuts of the film were showing Luke very, very dark and aggressive and angry, and that it was done for like the drama of, is he going to fall to the dark side, of course, know, and I can see where maybe Richard Marquand would sort of be going that way, but the word on the street was that it was creating a very unlikable Luke Skywalker. And it was the way that I've heard it told is that Mark Hamill would give like one Luke Skywalker as we know him take per scene. And that Marsha Lucas literally combed through all the footage and found these things and really had to cut the entire movie around what she was able to find that portrayed Luke Skywalker as we know him in Return of the Jedi versus what would have been a much darker portrayal, perhaps even an unlikable portrayal of Luke Skywalker. And that kind of shows you the importance of, the entire creative process, but how, the movie, and we've heard of Star Wars being saved in the edit more than once. And so it's just such an interesting little tidbit. I can't recall the source. Please feel free to look it up. And it's just very interesting to me. I've always remembered that. And just thinking of like how lucky, if you want to call it that, maybe the Force just worked just right, that we were able to get Luke Skywalker as we got him. Because to me, Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, that's my Luke Skywalker. Yeah. Like, I met someone the other day, and they were talking about, they had a friend whose religion was the Force, and that he said to her that he lived his life as though he was Luke Skywalker. It's like his guiding principle. And I'm not that far off from that. Literally, like, we were talking about your shirt. It's like I wear the same clothes every day because I'm basically just trying to look like, unbeknownst to me at the time, but it's like I've just been trying to model my life after Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker. Like, and to think that could have been very different. As an 8-year-old, I could have watched Return of the Jedi and been like, man, this movie sucks. That other one was so much better. But instead, we got what we got, gratefully. So what about for you? Are you? Because I know we both have, I think, if we were to really sit here and rank our top 5 Star Wars, I feel like people would look at us quite strange. For the original trilogy, where do you sort of rank them? Like, where's Return of the Jedi in terms of your order of the 3 original films? Now that you've gone back and recently watched them, I know it's tough, but if you had a saber to the brain, like
Empire will be number 1 for me.
Same.
Yeah. She and I were talking about that earlier because when Return of the Jedi started today, she was like, I said something like, this one's Tyler's favorite. And she was like, I thought you said Empire was Tyler's favorite. And she was like, you need to ask on the podcast today to get it straight. So
yes, Empire is my favorite.
Empire, yeah.
I know a lot of people that put Return of the Jedi first. Mainly, it seems to be like a strong tie to what you saw first.
Yeah.
And I'll say for me, I saw Empire first. So maybe had I saw Return of the Jedi first, it would have been Return of the Jedi.
I like for the sake of like environments and battles, Empire, like Hoth is a big one for me because I remember that as a kid and like I just thought that was so cool.
I can't wait to see the Mando movie if they're going to go back.
Yeah, same.
You know, maybe it's not Hoth, but just a Snow Planet with.
I would say Empire, Return, and then A New Hope, and
we're the same.
Yeah, because A New Hope was the first Star Wars I had ever seen, I saw A New Hope a couple of times before I had seen any other Star Wars.
Because your dad rented it from Blockbuster.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I need to ask him about that sometime. Like what it was in his mind that made him rent that movie.
He'll say, "Son,
for the first time."
I felt like it was time.
And then
but I was afraid you weren't going to like it.
Well, my dad's he's just not a Star Wars fan. I mean, he's not like he doesn't hate it, but he's just not a big. But anyways,
yeah.
I'm more fond of A New Hope, but as far as I would say, like I've seen A New Hope so many times, or I know that story so many times, it can get a bit tiring maybe to watch it because I kind of know where everything's going.
I get that. Yeah.
There were a lot more gaps in Return of the Jedi and Empire Strikes Back for me, and then the character development, all the tension that builds in those 2 movies in particular, keep me a lot more engaged, I think.
I get it. Cool, man. Well, I'm kind of similar to you in that I said 5, 6, 4 is definitely my order. When I watched Return of the Jedi for the bonus commentary that I recorded, shout out to Star Wars After Party Patreon. If you would like to go back and watch the original trilogy and listen to some bonus commentary while you do, $3 get you in the door. Our Patreon, patreon.com/Star Wars After Party. $3 a month, get you into the Discord, get you bonus episodes, all that stuff. We're all watching Clone Wars right now in chronological order. I'm dropping about 2 to 4 bonus episodes a week. So yeah, you can get that if you'd like. But whenever I was recording the Return of the Jedi one, I was just like, it's so much weirder than I remember. Like it's just so weird.
Yeah.
Because I watched 4, 5, 6 within like one day. You know, whereas I feel like in the past I would watch them, you know, maybe this one on this day, this one that day though. But when you watch them in such quick succession, it's obvious that Return of the Jedi is so left field compared to the other ones.
Yeah.
And I love that.
I noticed that today too when I was watching it, just how like foreign this movie felt, I guess. I mean, I think there was a lot of highlighting of the characters, especially at Jabba's palace. You know, you've got Ewoks. There's like some comedy to it. This was just definitely a wilder movie than 4 and 5, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's got like all the weird Jabba's palace stuff that's quite strange. But then like the Ewoks are obviously weird. Like, it's like, well, if you describe it, it sounds strange. It's like it's just still strange if you're watching it too. It's just weird, man.
Yeah,
there's so much weird stuff.
It's just it's a bit more explicit or aggressive or maybe offensive of a movie in a way than the other 2. Like
interesting.
Like I watching it all so focused today, like Jabba's palace,
Oh,
Salacious B. Crumb, the Rancor, like it's just
It's dark. It's
gross. All the mucus in Jabba's mouth, his tongue, the way he like almost licked Leia's face.
It's like, what is that? Yeah.
Everybody just looks wet and gross. The Rancor's face, the Rancor keeper, like being weird and like I don't know. There's just a lot of like kind of. I don't know. It's grosser than I remembered.
I totally get what you mean. So now that you guys have finished the original trilogy, it seems like she's, up on it. 2 thumbs up. Where do you go next?
I think we'll do the prequels all the way through. 1, 2, 3. I know that's different than what I had talked about originally, but
I think that's a way to do it.
Like to see the redemption of Vader at the end, and she was just so locked into the fact that like, man, like he's good now. Like she's like, so that's it. He just dies. I was like, yeah. So it leaves you wanting more of that character. So now you see him turn good, and then to go watch 1, 2, and 3, I think is the best move. So yeah, I think 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe start dabbling in Clone Wars a little bit.
Wow.
To really lean in.
You're really gonna lean in on the sequel here.
No.
Why not finish all the movies, Cameron?
Well, it's like I feel like you kind of have to like squeeze everything you can out of the original and prequel era before you move to the sequel trilogy, because it is a little bit disjointed. Like, oh, what the heck? Like Palpatine's still alive. I just feel like she seems to be latching on a lot more to the dramatic nature of like
spoiler alerts for her, by the way.
The character development.
She's listening to this episode.
What?
We're just spoiling it.
Palpatine. Oh yeah,
it's like everything. She's listened to enough Star Wars After Party. She's already been spoiled.
Well, that's not even. I mean, was Palpatine even still alive?
Ooh, it's some deep philosophical.
It's just what I was saying is that the sequels. The sequels are, whether you like them or you don't like them, the sequels are messy. I feel like.
I think the original trilogy is messy. I don't think it's unfair to say that. And I think, the sequel trilogies are messy too. Yeah.
It's just messy in a way where you're blending so much like familiar with unfamiliar. And I guess that could be said of anything, right? For anybody who's watching it for the first time. Like the prequel trilogy is going to be familiar and unfamiliar. But I don't know. I feel like, that's right.
Talks about.
Yeah. I don't know. I just feel like going hard with the development of Anakin. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'd say I'm gonna try to like put feelers out with Clone Wars. Clone Wars is a big commitment.
I'll say that's gonna take.
It's a long show. It's a lot of animated content. So I'm gonna kind of like test the waters and see how much she latches onto the character, because anybody who's watched the Clone Wars will tell you it takes a little bit to like get locked into the story, and then you just forget you're watching an animated show completely. Yeah. So 1, 2, 3, and then lean into a little bit more to Clone Wars, I think. I
will give this encouragement as we've been going through, in the Patreon, like I think we've done about 20 episodes so far. There's a lot of really great stuff even in those early episodes. Like, there's I think that it gets talked about a lot. Like, oh man, Clone Wars gets really good season 2, season 3, and that's not a lie, but it's also got a lot of really great stuff in season 1. So, I'm just saying it more for people who might be like, should I watch Clone Wars? Like, yeah, absolutely. So if you guys are going to watch Clone Wars, then that means you're not going to get into the sequels for like another year. And you like it like that, don't you? Let me ask you this. If you're going to go Clone Wars after the prequels, does that mean that you're going to go sort of in like almost quote unquote release order, meaning that maybe then you would do the sequels and then do the Mandoverse stuff, or you know what I mean? Or because I mean, when you guys start watching Mando, she's gonna love that. Yeah, like that's if she likes Return of the Jedi, she's gonna love The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, because Book of Boba Fett feels very Return of the Jedi. Like, I mean, it's set in
for sure.
Jabba's palace.
It's weird, like Return of the Jedi.
Bib Fortuna shows up. You got Boba Fett. You got an arc with a Rancor. Like, that's a big part of it. I mean, I almost feel like we could go Return of the Jedi to Mandoverse.
Well, you could.
Yeah.
You absolutely could. The only... I don't know, man. I feel like you could absolutely do that because I was trying to think of like, all right, yeah, but what really,
what won't make sense?
What really ties into the prequels? And when I think about it, here are the things that I would say tie in so much to the prequel era. In Book of Boba Fett, you get in the second episode when he's kind of doing his hero's journey awakening thing, when he's tripping out in the desert. He's got that scene of seeing Jango fly away. Mm-hmm. You wouldn't have really any context for that, the fact that he's a clone necessarily.
Yeah.
But I say that to say that could be more like a nice foreshadowing to what you will find
in the prequels
when you go to the prequels after. And as I think of it a little bit more, another big, if you're going to watch like season 1, season 2 of Mando, Book of Boba Fett, season 3 of Mando, you're going to see Ahsoka Tano. Mm-hmm. But I think, again, that's like a really cool foreshadowing. You see this awesome samurai-like, Ronin-like Jedi warrior, and you're like, who is she? Mm-hmm. And then you go watch the prequels, you hit Clone Wars, and you're like, this little 13-year-old? And it's like, yes, and you're going to watch her grow up over the next 7 seasons, and it's going to be awesome. So, I mean...
Yeah, now that
we talk...
Now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of do want to go straight to Mandoverse, because I think my thing is that it's that control aspect of it. It's like, I want you to stay focused on
let go.
It's like, I want you to stay focused on the right things. So I don't want to get too far away from Anakin's story, but honestly, like... It's locked in. Like, the way that the original trilogy is set up, like, it locks you in with that curiosity of, like, who Anakin is. So I feel like we could go, Book of Mando Fett and do those two things.
Maybe in that order.
Oh, for sure.
You could drop, like, here's what's cool. Just let me get you, maybe this gets you excited. It's like, you could watch the first episode of Book of Boba Fett tonight.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean, like real fresh, just like and then do the Book of Mando Fett.
That's actually a great idea.
You know, it's like
because
that
she was already wondering about the Rancor, the Sarlacc pit.
It's
stuff.
like,
anyways,
it's like
you got Bib Fortuna, you got Jabba's palace.
You don't have to wait 40 years. You just give me another about 40 minutes of this podcast, and you get to go. Yeah. Well, you know what I mean? Like, but I say that also to say that, like, if you watch the Book of Mando Fett, how do I say this without? I mean. No, it's. I'll say it like this. That's some of my favorite Star Wars, and so you're really front loading a lot of the great stuff. It's not to say that like Clone Wars isn't going to be excellent. Of course, you got Rebels. There's so much good stuff. The one thing that maybe I would consider is like saving Ahsoka until after the Clone Wars. Yeah, because I feel like you need that Anakin. As much as people say you should watch Rebels before watching Ahsoka. I think far more it's more important that you've seen the Clone Wars, that you really understand Anakin and Ahsoka's relationship. Yep. So if I was literally driving someone through the entire of the canon, I would probably save Ahsoka. Mm-hmm. Just because also it's like one of my favorites. It's a nice little cherry on top before you go into the sequels and stuff. But see, if you're gonna save the sequels for last,
I wonder.
You might need to consider that.
I wonder if there is a way to do a quick all the hits watch of Clone Wars and Rebels. Like, I wonder if there's a way to kind of cherry pick the main, the meat of the Clone Wars and Rebels. I wonder if you could reduce it down to, like, I don't know, 15 episodes or 15 or 20 episodes worth in order to get what you need. Because I mean, yeah, it is front loading it a lot, but I feel like you have to really desire more Star Wars to really like strap in for all the Clone Wars or all of Rebels. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, we'll front load it with like all the greats, and then after that, it's like, all right, well, what do you want more Star Wars? Because there's plenty of it,
bro. I mean, but that kind of speaks to the idea of like maybe it is best to jump into The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, because throughout that journey, you know, you're going to be meeting characters. It's like, whoa, who is she? She's awesome. It's like, that's Bo-Katan.
Yeah,
it's like you'll get her in season 2 or season 3, whatever it is of the Clone Wars. It's like, oh, well, now I gotta watch Clone Wars.
Well,
so actually, it might stoke up this excitement of like,
yeah, you get to see this later. Yeah. The way that the original trilogy like makes you want to know more about Anakin.
Yeah,
but I'm also thinking about.
It's interesting. It always points to itself.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about picking up with Book of Boba Fett right where Return of the Jedi leaves off, but like, we've talked about Luke in Return of the Jedi, and this whole time we've been talking, I'm just thinking about how well they captured Luke in The Mandalorian.
Yeah,
because he's wearing the all black. His like whole demeanor when he appears in Mando season 2 is in perfect alignment with Luke that we see in Return of the Jedi.
Absolutely.
So I think it makes sense in a lot of ways to go. So we'll go Book of Boba Fett episode 1, and then Mando season 1 all the way through. And
if you really consider what it is that the prequels are for, it's for the backstory on Anakin Skywalker. It's for the connection of Anakin and Obi-Wan. It's for the romance of Anakin and Padme. It's for the downfall of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
These are the things that you get from watching the prequels. When you consider the Mandoverse, with the exception, I would say, of Ahsoka, none of that is really important in those shows.
Yeah.
Like, Anakin's name is not mentioned at all in the Mandoverse. The closest it gets is when Christopher Lloyd is about to say stuff about Count Dooku before he was taken down by the Jedi, Anakin Skywalker, and they literally hit him and say, "We don't have time for your politics." Yeah. So like, you don't ever talk about Anakin. It gets close in that episode, chapter 6, From the Desert Comes Stranger in the Book of Boba Fett, where Ahsoka and Luke are talking a little bit about Anakin, but that's as close as it gets. So, man, it really does feel like maybe the way is.
I'm getting real excited about this the more we talk about it. So,
the way, dude.
Book of Mando Fett next.
Yeah.
Then the prequels.
Oh.
And then Obi-Wan.
Oh. And then Clone Wars? If only.
I think so.
Only if she's like, I gotta get more Star Wars. But like, the Clone Wars delivers. Like, that's what I love about the Clone Wars is like, if you are willing to watch it, and this goes to anybody who's listening or watching, if you're willing to watch it, and if you just understand that you will be fulfilled by the end of the 7 seasons, if you can just let your preferences, maybe you're not an animated person, I wasn't either, let your preferences go off to the side just a little bit, and you'll find yourself really loving the show. And you can take that to the bank. Man. It's a great series.
I had to have extensive knowledge of Star Wars before I watched Clone Wars, because where it delivers is filling in so many little gaps. So it's like you need the greatest hits first,
right? And
then Clone Wars fills in. It's like, oh, whoa, we get more Maul, or here's some backstory on Mandalore, or Obi-Wan has a love interest, or Anakin's continued like getting closer and closer to the dark side.
Right.
So, that's exactly what we're going to do now.
I love that, man. I'm so excited. I'm so excited that she's enjoying it. I'm excited for you because you get to go, we talk about it like I watched Ahsoka last week and I still have 2 episodes of Obi-Wan. I might finish it tonight. I just had a busy weekend going out of town and stuff. But that said, we're always watching Star Wars, but it's fun when you do it, quote unquote, with some kind of purpose. Like even I've noticed, like in our podcast, there was the time that we rewatched Andor in between seasons of whatever show was going on, and I think that whenever we were watching Andor, it was like we have a purpose of watching it. Like, not only
Yeah.
are we enjoying it, but like we're going to be talking about this on a podcast, and like our fellow Star Wars fans are going to be listening. So we got to really pay attention, and it really made such a great time because you're probably thinking as you're watching, like, I got to be in on this because she's taking it in. She might have questions or things she wants to talk about, and so it really does kind of like bolster your Star Wars fandom in some way.
Yeah,
It's like a
I
little
like
extra.
watching it with a little bit more purpose. I mean, Star Wars is something I can put on just kind of have in the background if I
Right.
want to. I haven't been doing a whole lot of that recently, unrelated to Star Wars. My big consumption lately has been The Last Kingdom on Netflix, which is probably my favorite TV show
What's that about?
ever of all time. It's like a Viking-esque.
Okay.
It's kind of loosely historically accurate, kind of about the struggle of trying to unite the kingdoms of England, and then you've got the Danes invading, and it follows this one character who's like not really Dane, and he's also not really. He kind of, I don't know. It's one of my favorite shows.
He walks both ways.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, he. My brother got me into it, and I've watched it all the way through. I don't know, 4 or 5 times now.
Sick.
It's an unbelievable show.
That's awesome.
I've been watching that a lot, and then Lacey and I have been watching The Blacklist, which is also a great.
You mentioned we do have a little bit of Star Wars news we're going to get to here in a sec before we
Yeah.
close up. But you mentioned, we pushed this recording up about 30 minutes because you had something nerdy to do. What's the nerdy thing you have to do besides watch Star Wars? All
right,
what other nerdy stuff do you do, dude?
There's a company called Citizen Brick. It's an aftermarket Lego company. So
This is getting so nerdy.
they make these printed. It's a lot of pop culture references. It's a lot of inappropriate or like offensive characters that they make, but it's printed at the same exact quality as Lego. So this isn't somebody like it's not makeshift. I mean, this is a huge
knockoff.
operation.
Yeah.
It's got an enormous and unbelievable cult following.
Okay.
So they release a couple of figures, they sell out immediately, they go up on the aftermarket for hundreds of dollars. Well, they're doing a San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay. This ties into the news.
Yep.
Please. Yeah.
They're doing a Comic-Con exclusive eBay Live auction. And they've got 3 figures that they released for it. An Edward Scissorhands minifigure.
Okay.
It's one that's like covered in graffiti. That'll be fine, whatever. And then the third one is a San Diego Comic-Con like tie-in of someone. The figure is someone cosplaying Slave Leia,
okay.
but it's a man.
okay.
So you get this like Slave Leia outfit
It's Star Wars related. then.
on like a beer gut mustached man. So
A Lego.
Yeah, a Lego
Okay.
figure. Yeah, because they did a similar one. One of the last Comic Cons was like it was a character who was in like he had a Batman like mask on, but the shirt, the t-shirt looked like it was kind of like up a little bit. The
Right,
gut was
little
falling
beer
out.
belly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that auction is at 4:00. I'll probably pick up 2 of each figure, one for my collection and then one to resell, because I think they'll
make it
be
back.
$30 a piece. But I mean, I've turned around. I bought Citizen Brick figures before for $25, $30 and turned around and sold them for 150, 175. Yeah, it's like an insane market.
Dang, dude.
So
Well, what time does that go on sale?
4 p.m.
Oh, bro, we need to get ready to wrap this
Yeah,
thing
where
up
we
here in a
at?
sec. All right, you're talking about San Diego Comic-Con. Let's talk about New York Comic-Con
Okay.
from StarWars.com. New York Comic-Con 2024, all the Star Wars news and reveals from NYCC.
Maybe that's what this is for. Sorry.
Oh, it's NYCC. Okay.
Yeah.
The separatist cyborg General Grievous is returning for his own original graphic novel from Dark Horse Comics.
Nice.
The cover
Nice.
among the news and reveals announced at NYCC 2024, which included 2 panels dedicated to Star Wars books and comics. I'm going to skip around here. This is like a little bit. There's a bigger headline to me than what I just read. Actually, I didn't even know about this until I opened this particular article. But Charles Soule and a bunch of other authors jumped up and they talked about some upcoming titles and other news for the final stories coming from the High Republic next year. So those things are going to be wrapping up. So also Qui-Gon Jinn is getting an original graphic novel.
Whoa.
Happy Beeps buddy writer Ethan Sachs, our boy who did Bounty Hunters, made a surprise appearance on the Dark Horse panel to reveal art for his new Poe Dameron comic miniseries.
Nice.
Set in the lead up to the events of Star Wars The Force Awakens. The comic will feature the hotshot Resistance pilot and his faithful droid BB-8 on a new adventure. It's really strange to me that Ethan Sachs, a writer who has written for Marvel in a Star Wars run, is doing a Poe Dameron comic
with
for
Dark Horse. Yeah, that is weird.
Why not for Marvel? Because there was a Poe Dameron comic before. Like, I don't understand why they're doing it for,
Is all the Dark Horse stuff considered canon as well?
Yeah, as far as I won't know. I wouldn't say all of it, but it's not that none of it is canon. Like, definitely some of it is. So it's kind of strange. The fourth piece of news here, we already talked about that the Bad Batch is ready for a new mission. And this article on StarWars.com says Tech lives. So I'm not going to read the rest of that sentence. It just says Tech lives. So I was right. I just want to point that out that I was right.
Dang.
All right, Tech lives. The thing that I actually wanted to talk about, which I still haven't found here. Look, Vader's Castle is coming out, so there's that. Why is it burying the lead here? Like, legitimately, like there's a much bigger news, I feel like, than
it's to keep you scrolling through the article.
Apparently so. And then
it's like when you look up a recipe.
Yeah, then there's like The Acolyte, The Crystal Crown, which is a book by Tessa Gratton, which is a young adult novel following Jekki and Yord.
Yord Horde, rejoice.
Kel Naka and friends are joining the fray in the comics. Marvel unveiled the cover art for Star Wars The High Republic issue 2. So they're relaunching the High Republic comic for Marvel, which I didn't realize that. So that's getting a relaunch. So I guess there's going to be one more phase, or see, this is it, man. Look, I'm literally Googling Star Wars every day. I'm constantly reading all the comics. I'm reading. I have a Star Wars podcast. Like, I no longer know what they're doing with the High Republic. I thought it was going to be 3 phases, and that it was already strange enough. They had the first phase, which was really good. Then the second phase, they jumped back 100 years or whatever. It's like, all right, fine, that's fine. Then the third phase was they jumped forward again, and I feel like I just finished the third phase in the comics. They did their 10 comic run like the first couple phases, but no, actually, it's coming back again. So are we in phase 4? Or are we still in phase 3? I'm pretty sure we're still in phase. It's so complicated, dude. They really have. I'll speak for myself. I like to give a long line for Star Wars doing their Star Wars things. I'm starting to be very confused. And then why is there a picture of Lorna D with Kel Naka? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right? Like, no, I guess that can work because the High Republic era was before. Okay, never mind. So that's fine. But still, it's just weird, man. All right, so the main news that I was hoping to tell you, although there really is a lot. So if you go to StarWars.com, you can check out all these new comics and books that are coming out. But Mark Guggenheim, who wrote, I'm fairly certain, that Yoda Marvel run that we read recently.
Yep.
That we both enjoyed.
Yeah, it was great.
Will helm a new Marvel series focused on Jedi Knights. It's called Marvel Star Wars Jedi Knights. It explores the Jedi of the prequel era set prior to the events of Episode 1.
Wow.
And it follows Qui-Gon, follows Mace, follows Yoda, all that stuff. So we're getting a new Star Wars comic focused on the prequel era.
That is very exciting. This is the kind of stuff that I wanted. Like, I'm thankful for the High Republic. I'm thankful that we got to explore that era. But before we got the announcement of the High Republic, when we talked about prequel stuff, that is what I wanted. Like, more Qui-Gon. Yeah, like one. Leading right up into episode 1.
Also, it didn't say it there, but I saw earlier Count Dooku.
Dooku, Palpatine. Yeah. Dude, I want all that.
It's going to be awesome.
A Marvel comic too, you said?
Marvel comic written by Mark Guggenheim. So And again,
He
I feel
nailed
like
the
he did a
Yoda
great
one.
job with Yoda. So
absolutely.
I'm excited to see what he has to say here. So lots of Star Wars comics. Again, I'm very, very confused on what in the world is going on with the High Republic. I guess it's over next year, but like, I thought that it was over this year. So I don't know. Maybe it'll keep going into 2026. Who knows? But
Yeah.
either way, I mean, I'm going to check it out. I mean, I'm invested in the High Republic. I felt like I was prepared for it to finish and be done, and then like I literally like finished the last comic, and I'm like, it's nowhere near done. Like there's still so much more to have happen. So I don't know. I'm very interested in what the ultimate fate for Marchion Ro is. I hope Charles Soule's the one that tells that story too.
That'd be great.
I mean, I'm ready for more Charles Soule, Marchion Ro. Man, I hope he gets another comic series. But I'll read the book if I need to read the book. That's fine. So you're gonna keep us updated on A, were you able to get the Lego, and B, where you guys go next.
Yeah.
But towards
it'll be Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, we've got the season 4 finale of Blacklist to watch tonight.
Okay.
So I don't know if we'll get back into Star Wars, but watching it, like going into a show next seems like a great plan because it's smaller bites too.
And
you know,
and you get to spread out the movies, which are obviously like the big tent pole kind of.
Yeah,
it feels right. It feels
Book
right.
of Boba Fett episode 1 will 100% be the next thing that we watch.
Dude, that's gonna be fun, man. Because you've got the whole like the Sarlacc stuff. You've got him coming out doing and then it's cutting to the present day of him killing Bib Fortuna, and like, man, there's so much good stuff.
Yeah,
y'all are gonna have a blast. Well,
I can't wait.
Keep us updated on the major milestones, like the Book of Boba Fett finale, or when she meets Baby Yoda, or things like that. Like I'm interested. I'm very invested in her Star Wars journey.
I think C3PO has become her favorite character.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got
just a lot of his
you're a very 3PO vibe.
A lot of that's what she said. She was like,
really? I was just messing around.
She I don't know. Just some of the things that he says are just he's hilarious, and I didn't like really.
3PO's
think
really
about
funny.
how funny he was until this rewatch. So.
He's hilarious. Him and Han are great together.
Yeah,
like some of their back and forths are absolutely my favorite of the saga. So yeah, man, we'll keep us posted. We're gonna go ahead and land this ship. We'll be back next week. Maybe Cameron will have watched a little Book of Boba Fett.
Likely.
I'd like to say that I'm gonna finish Obi-Wan by then, and just depending on how you guys are doing, I might just jump in and watch a little Book of Boba Fett with you. Not with you. I'm not trying to, sit on the couch in between you guys. I'm like putting my hands in the popcorn. None of that. But I might watch it alongside of you. I feel like it would be fun.
I want to hear your overall thoughts of Obi-Wan after your next rewatch.
Ooh.
So I think next week I want to hear, without me doing a rewatch, I just want to hear you talk about it.
I'm down with that. So that gives me, again, purpose.
Yeah.
Now I have a purpose. I have to finish Obi-Wan. After I finish Obi-Wan, who knows what I'm going to get into. I can't wait to find out what it is. Until then, Tyler out.
Cameron out.
This party's over.